Welcome back, everybody. So I've watched a few of these videos going round. I think initially, I'm not sure it was intended to be sort of a VR type thing, but I think Pete SNEStastic first put a video up, it's been 2 or 3 weeks ago now, about how is he collecting cartridges in 2025, and sort of went on to talk about how he collects in general and how his sort of philosophy is going forwards, you know, in 2025. And then Stu Ninja Bearhug did a similar kind of thing, where he made a response video regarding, you know, the same subject. And then I've seen just recently Rodgy did one, Rodgy Retro, on sort of his philosophy on how he collects, and I found all 3 videos really quite interesting, to be honest. So I thought, it's too hot to spend much time in here, so I just thought I'd do a cheeky quick video on kind of how I collect, really. I'll put links in the description to the 3 lads who I've just mentioned. Go check them out if you haven't already. I'm sure you probably have if you're watching me. But anyway, how I collect, like I say, I've enjoyed all the 3 guys' videos, and they've all had kind of different points of view, and I think that's the take home, really. You know, there's no right and wrong answer. It's just what works best for you, and just, you know, the way one person might collect might not work for somebody else, and vice versa. And it's kind of what makes us all a bit different, isn't it? Be, you know, dull old world if we all liked and did the same things after all. So, the way I collect, I think I've got quite an obsessive personality, and, you know, the more I think about it and have thought about it over the years, you know, I think that's gone back right to when I was a child. So I think, you know, there's elements of your sort of makeup and psyche that, you know, you're kind of born with, and you've got to have these traits to become kind of a obsessed nutter who collects old plastic, haven't you, really? So, you know, I've got, like I say, I've got this obsessive sort of makeup in my brain or whatever, and I can trace it way back to when I was a kid. Like I say, I was mad about Corgi and Matchbox cars, and, you know, I had loads of them. Obviously my mum and dad must have bought them for me. I obviously didn't buy them myself, but that's all I wanted to play with when I was a kid. I loved me little toy cars, and then that's just progressed to other things, predominantly games, and sort of movies, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-rays up to a point for a while as well. But it's always been games, really, since I got the Spectrum, really. You know, I forgot about cars then, and it was all Spectrum, obviously. I mean, that's all I'd got at the time, so I'd got no choice. I had to be obsessed by the Spectrum, and that sort of continued as the time went on, until you sort of get yourself a job and you start working and earning money, and then you can buy what you want, can't you? But like I say, I've got this kind of obsessive personality where I'll get sort of hooked on something, and I'll go, you know, I'll go balls deep, massively down the rabbit hole, and I've got to consume everything in a short space of time. That's kind of the way my mind works. And at the time, you know, when things were new, it was less evident because you were governed by what you could buy. You know, a lot of things hadn't been released and there weren't much available when consoles first come out, so you'd just be buying what you could. But in more modern times, since all this stuff has become retro and cool and everybody wants to own it, you know, I've kind of, my obsessive nature has got more of a hold, I think, really, because I've sort of kept small collections from way back in the day, you know, my original ones, and you know, I had those for years, sort of fairly small collections for each console that I've owned, really. But then in later years, the sort of collectings took over a bit more, and you know, I've bought stuff back which I've sort of previously sold and not loved quite so much, perhaps, or I've got into something that I never really bothered with back in the day, and that's caused me to collect for a certain system that I might not have done before. But that kind of brings me back to having this obsessive kind of nature, where now, or certainly the previous, I don't know, 5 years or so, maybe 10 years, you know, I've gone really hard into certain consoles, and I've become obsessed, you know, and buying games for certain consoles at certain periods of time. You know, I had a period where I looked at my Saturn collection and I thought, I've got some decent games here, and a lot of the ones, or most of the ones, you know, I've always wanted. But I sort of started looking at the library and thinking, that looks quite good, that looks quite good, and before you know it, you've bought like, or in my case, you know, I've probably bought 50 Saturn games, and probably maybe even more than that, actually. You know, I had well over 100 Saturn games. I never counted them, I don't think. Might have been even getting on for 200. Anyway, this obsessive nature, and that then passed on to other things, you know, and I'd sort of go about collecting, you know, I'd have a fad on a console, and I'd buy loads of games for it, and I've done that repeatedly over and over again for all various different systems, most of them probably. But then I think, well, that's still, I mean, it still continues to this day, and probably always will in the future, up to a point, in some form or another, to be honest. And this sort of compulsive obsession with obtaining things for a certain console, that's got to be funded, hasn't it? So it's caused me then to sell something, or like sell a collection that has sort of gone way on the back burner because something else is foremost in my mind, and I've sold some collection off to fund the current obsession I'm delving in. And of course, as time goes on, or at least for me, you start to realise a lot of this stuff I've bought, it was kind of cool to try it, but realistically, I'm never going to play it. You know, I've had a quick blast on it. If I love it, great. It's one I'll definitely want to keep and play again. But, you know, a lot of the stuff I would have bought was kind of, okay, it's alright, it's not for me. I can't see myself playing that again. So consequently, over the years, I've ended up selling a lot of this stuff you obsessively buy at the time, which you really want at the time, but with time and sort of common sense, you realise, I shouldn't have bought that. But this compulsive nature tells you you've got to buy. You know, you see things on eBay, oh, I need that. But I've ended up selling, obviously, loads of stuff I've bought in the past to fund whatever I'm buying now. I think the last example of this kind of obsessive compulsion, buying stuff and then selling stuff to pay for what you're buying and then regretting it, is the PSP, because I've sold that, you know, in the last couple of years, and now I'm buying it again. So it's always there, but because my collecting now has reached a point where I'm lucky enough to have bought all the systems more or less I ever wanted, and I've tried more or less all the games I ever wanted, for the past sort of few months, I've been in a position where I can decide that's what I'm going to keep, that's what I'm going to play, because, and get rid of the rest, because there is, without a doubt, no question, the more you've got, the less you play. And so I've never considered myself, I'm sure we all think this, I've never considered myself as somebody who buys any shit. I've never bought shelf filler. I've only ever bought stuff I wanted to play, or I regarded as being good for me. But with this sort of hindsight and common sense and sort of looking forwards, and this philosophy of the more you've got, the less you play, which is 100% true, it still gets me looking. I'm constantly looking, to be honest, at the collection, and I'm thinking, as good as that game is, I am not going to play it. And there's a lot of stuff which, when I look around, I think, yeah, it's good, but am I ever going to play that? You know, because I always revert to stuff I love. I play that more than anything, really. And so I just ain't got the time to play sort of stuff I'm a bit about. So realistically speaking, that can go, and all I'm really interested in now is keeping stuff which for me is my absolute quality titles, and stuff that I might not play all the time, but it's stuff I could generally see myself, yeah, I could give that a quick blast. Hence, you know, obviously I like arcadey type games because I like quick blasts. I ain't got time for in-depth games. The thought of playing something for 100 hours or whatever just fills me with dread, honestly. I don't know how I put the time into Breath of the Wild that I did, but I mean, that being said, I loved it, and I'm sure I would love some modern stuff if I had the motivation to put the hours in, but I haven't got that. I've got this obsessive nature, but I haven't got motivation to put 800 hours into one game. I don't see that ever sort of entering my being, but who knows. So going forwards, I think I will still buy stuff, probably. Well, I think I will still buy stuff, but it will be much more selective than I have in the past, and it will be stuff that perhaps I was unaware of, and for some reason slipped through the net. And I'm in a position now where this room is very compromised in the fact that there's very little space to display stuff, really, and I've maximised it 100% to what I can for storing and sort of displaying stuff. And aside from like brand new, like current gen, say, well, Xbox and PS4, I haven't got space to display them, so they're just in storage, and I keep the discs in wallets for easy access for putting them in the machine. So all my retro is more or less, I've managed to get on show now in the room, which I'm, you know, if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I'd have said it was impossible. So I'm in this position now where I've got all my collections on show everywhere I can get at them easily, and if I buy anything now, it's 100% one in, one out, because there is no room at the inn. I don't want stuff in storage boxes, so if I buy something, something has got to make way for it on the shelf. So I will still keep buying retro. It will just be much more conservative and on a smaller scale than I ever have before. And I'm also going to be buying sort of new stuff for the Switch 2, or any current gen console, what takes my fancy. I mean, there won't be a lot, but whatever there will be, you know, I'll still be buying that. But my big thing now is actually as I say, I've been trimming it down to sort of bare essentials of absolute quality. I just want to enjoy the stuff, you know what I mean? I want to get back to sort of back in the day where it was more about the gaming, more so than it has been the past few years, where it's all been about amassing stuff that I've always wanted. I just want to enjoy what I've sort of picked up now, more or less, and just supplement that with a few nice quality pickups every now and again when something crops up and becomes available. You know, obviously, because when you're young, you know, you want all this stuff, but you just can't afford it, can you? And you've got to wait till you're old until you're able to acquire all this stuff. And I just want, you know, to be able to enjoy it now before I fall off the old perch, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of my philosophy. I just thought I'd throw that cheeky little video together. And I've much in sort of contradiction to the name of the channel, as highlighted by Craig, just lately I've really been enjoying modern stuff. You know, not that I've ever been against modern. I mean, I've you know, as you just about see up there, I've got like a fair Switch collection. You know, I've always collected modern. I just never talk about it really. I only ever talk about retro and moan about modern stuff. But you know, there's plenty of cool stuff on modern platforms. There's a lot of it I haven't got the time for, because it's all, you know, like I say, all these big games, not for me. But there's plenty of cool stuff on modern systems. I just don't talk about it. But that said, I have really been enjoying the modern. It's since I got the Switch 2, really. It's got me playing the original Switch again. I started playing, after playing Mario Kart on the Switch 2, it got me playing Mario Kart on the Switch again. Because I never really played much of that, because I played it on the Wii U and it's essentially the same. So, but it's got me playing that now. I've also been playing Mario Wonder for the first time. I know, I'm only like 12 months late, but that is a quality game, I've got to say, Mario Wonder. Absolutely loving that. And then this like a new monitor I bought, got me thinking about, you know, PS5. And I did buy a PS5 game the other day, because there's so few that interest me. It's never been on my radar. And then I've been waiting for, there's a small list, like 3 or 4 games I was interested in for the PS5, and then I've been waiting to find one of these games in my local CEX, and finally I found one in the week and I bought one. Or I traded some, hence, you know, trimming. I traded some old tat, and ended up getting this game for £5 or something. I paid for it with what I traded in. Because I was, you know, this new monitor's got 2 sockets on it, so I was thinking, what else could I put on that socket initially? I was going to put the Neo Mini, and then I thought, I could stick a PS5 in here. So that's kind of got the old cogs turning. Then I dropped on this game. So maybe, we'll see. That's something else for the future. So like I say, I will keep buying stuff. Inevitable. But just, you know, I really want to enjoy what I've got now. Anyway, waffled on for far too long. What are your thoughts? Chuck a video up. I've really enjoyed watching the others. Like I say, everybody's point of view is different. Well, how do you collect? You know, let us know. Make a video in the comments. Do a VR. Always good to see. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon. Got to get out of this room now. It's red hot. See you next time.